Good morning, this is your today's headlines briefing for Wednesday, July 30th, 2026. We begin with the top news, where the United States is again exchanging strikes with Iran, just days after the president appeared to reject plans to escalate. Over the weekend, President Trump rejected a return to full-scale war, but Iran has proved a stubborn enemy. On Tuesday evening, Iran fired multiple missiles on American bases in Jordan. The U.S. military intercepted the missiles with apparent ease, yet the incident drew Mr. Trump back into fighting. The United States struck back in a powerful response on Wednesday evening, according to U.S. Central Command. Moving on, the nomination of Todd Blanche for Attorney General faces a delay after Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Tom Tillis of North Carolina expressed skepticism over an IRS provision. The two Republican lawmakers on the Senate Judiciary Committee accused Mr. Blanche of refusing to put on paper his promise to kill aspects of the deal he cut to settle President Trump's lawsuit against the agency. In June, Mr. Blanche said he would drop a proposed $1.8 billion fund to compensate purported victims of Biden-era activity, and the senators warned they would block his nomination unless he clarifies that commitment. Next, Dr. Anthony Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times during a bitter Senate hearing on the origins of COVID-19. On the advice of counsel, he repeatedly declined to answer questions, saying he respectfully declines based on his constitutional right not to incriminate himself. Senator Rand Paul, who chairs the committee, said the panel would vote next week on whether to hold Dr. Fauci in contempt of Congress. Turning to world news, wildfires are plaguing Europe, and Scotland is racing to save a cherished national park. As the continent's climate warms, even the moorlands and forests of the Cairngorms in the Scottish Highlands have fallen victim to rapidly spreading flames. Firefighters have been battling a 2-week conflagration that has ripped through moorland and forest, obliterating some of Scotland's most treasured natural scenery. Smoke billows above rocky hilltops, acres of vegetation lie blackened and charred, and helicopters hover ready to waterbomb the blaze. In the Middle East, an explosion at a port on Egypt's Mediterranean coast set fire to 2 ships, including a U.S.-owned natural gas storage tanker. Marine tracking firms reported the blast, with one firm saying the explosion in the Egyptian Mediterranean port of Damietta was caused by a drone attack, though Egyptian authorities and the shipowners have not officially confirmed the cause. Analysts say the attack is unlikely to affect global energy markets significantly because Egypt is not a major exporter. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has reluctantly entered the U.S.-Iran war. The kingdom's defense ministry announced airstrikes in Iraq targeting Iran-backed militias, stating the strikes were in retaliation for attacks on Saudi oil facilities this week. Iraq's National Security Council said the strikes caused deaths and injuries of a number of innocent people. Analysts note Saudi Arabia's delayed entry, 6 months into the conflict, illustrates the bind the kingdom faces as it tries to deter attacks without being sucked into the broader war. In U.S. news, a couple in Abilene, Texas, has found a clever way to make money off a massive nearby construction project. With a $25 billion complex under construction, they opened the Elmdale Outpost convenience store. Dust-covered pickup trucks from Louisiana, North Carolina, Mexico and elsewhere pull into its parking lot as weary workers walk through the door, leaving a trail of dirt inside. The store offers snacks and essentials, catering to the stream of workers heading home from the site. Shifting to a tragic case, prosecutors say Lindsay Clancy planned the killings of her 3 young children, while her lawyers point to her severe postpartum mental illness. A horrific 911 call captured the father, Patrick Clancy, discovering the bodies in the basement after finding his wife had slashed her wrists and throat and jumped from a second-floor window. He tells the operator he needs to go check on his kids, then heads inside, followed by his repeated screams that she killed the kids. On the infrastructure front, President Trump unveiled a $22.5 billion redesign of Dulles International Airport. The project aims to make the airport easier to navigate and includes a new United Lounge. Speaking at the White House, Mr. Trump called the transformation another step in efforts to make Washington, D.C., safe and beautiful again, adding that the redesign has bipartisan appeal because nobody wants to be subjected to the current airport. In politics, a gathering of South Carolina's political elite paid tribute to the late Senator Lindsey Graham at his funeral, set against a highly competitive race to replace him. Leading candidates vying to succeed Graham attended the service, creating an occasionally awkward tableau as they celebrated his life while quietly jockeying for his seat. One candidate is Mr. Graham's sister, Senator Darlene Graham, who was picked to serve out the remainder of his term and endorsed by President Trump to run for the next term. She escorted his casket to the front of the First Baptist Church in Columbia, the state capital. In Texas, Republicans are not yet funding a key Senate race, a peculiar dynamic where the fate of Republican nominee Ken Paxton will help decide which party controls the U.S. Senate. The situation reflects broader uncertainties about the party's strategy in the state. Former President Barack Obama made one of his first midterm endorsements with a basketball video, aiming to help Josh Turek win a Senate seat in Iowa. Obama, the only Democrat to win Iowa in a presidential election in the last quarter century, loves basketball, as does Turek, a two-time Paralympic gold medalist on the U.S. men's wheelchair basketball team. In the endorsement video, Obama shoots hoops with Turek, a centrist state lawmaker seeking to become the first Democrat to win a Senate seat in Iowa in more than a decade. Moving to business, the Federal Reserve held interest rates steady at its latest meeting, but three officials backed an increase. Kevin M. Warsh's second meeting as chairman was marked by internal divisions over the path forward for policy. The Fed voted 9-3 to maintain rates at 3.5 to 3.75%, a level unchanged since January. Beth M. Hammack of the Cleveland Fed, Neil Kashkari of the Minneapolis Fed and Lori K. Logan of the Dallas Fed dissented, voting instead for a quarter-point increase, highlighting the tough spot the Fed and its chairman face as they navigate inflation pressures. In global economic news, climate change and tariffs are helping China raise more cattle. Increased rain has made grasslands and cornfields possible in areas that were once deserts, allowing the world's largest beef importer to become more self-reliant by expanding domestic herds. In northern China's Hebei province, herders take their cows to graze in mountain pastures that have turned into lush grasslands crisscrossed with rows of poplar trees. The administrative prefecture in China's Inner Mongolia region has seen similar transformations, turning former sand and gravel into productive rangeland. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association is suing Penske Media over the takeover of the Golden Globes. The association, which owned and operated the awards show until 2023, claims the purchase was fraudulent and alleges Penske Media sought to monopolize the lucrative advertising business driven by Hollywood studios chasing awards. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court for the Central District of California, noting that Penske Media also owns Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, and other trade publications. In technology news, the number of AI chips that provide the computing power to advance fast-evolving technology is doubling every 9 months, signaling an impending, inescapable deluge of computing power. Microsoft is increasing its spending on artificial intelligence as profit jumps 31%. The company said it spent $41 billion on capital expenditures, including data centers, in the 3 months that ended in June, up 69% from a year earlier. Microsoft's total spending for the 2026 fiscal year reached $145.3 billion, and its quarterly profit was $35.8 billion, up 31%. Meanwhile, Meta's profit fell 14% as its AI spending continues. The social media giant said it increased the lower end of its capital expenditure forecast for the year to $130 billion, up from a $125 billion projection in April, with much of that investment destined for building data centers. Meta also reported that its costs and expenses rose faster than revenue growth for the second quarter, with revenue at $60.8 billion, up 28% year over year. In New York, the rollout of the city's controversial second home tax, known as the Pied a Terra tax, is confusing some residents. The tax caused anxiety for homeowners who feel outed by the publication of their addresses, with some insisting they have only one home. The rollout began with a notification from Mayor Zoran Mamdani on social media, "You've got mail." Letters were sent to owners of second homes worth more than $5 million, warning that their property might be subject to the new surcharge. The following day, in accordance with the law, the city's Department of Finance published the names and addresses associated with the tax. A lawyer who once represented President Trump has been appointed U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Federal court judges in Manhattan appointed James M. McDonald, a former federal prosecutor and partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, to the post. Mr. McDonald had been selected by Mr. Trump to succeed Jay Clayton as the U.S. Attorney, and on Wednesday the district judges ratified the president's choice. Mr. McDonald had previously represented Mr. Trump in his appeal of a criminal conviction. In a related case, the man who stabbed author Salman Rushdie repeatedly at a literary conference in 2022 has been found guilty of aiding a foreign terror group. Hadi Muttar, a young man enraged by Rushdie's work, rushed on stage at a retreat in western New York in August 2022 and stabbed him multiple times. Rushdie survived the attack but was left with severe nerve damage and blind in his right eye. Muttar was convicted of attempted murder in state court last year and, on Wednesday, found guilty of carrying out the orders of the Iranian government, which had called for Rushdie's death for more than 3 decades. In the arts, 10 women have accused actor Jared Leto of sexual misconduct in a BBC report. The allegations include sex with underage girls and sexually explicit messages. One woman said Leto sexually assaulted her in a motel bathroom when she was 17. Another said she had sex with Leto in California when she was 17, which would have been statutory rape at the time. Another described being groomed by Leto and accused him of making repeated sexually explicit phone calls when she was 16, after which he sent her a non-disclosure agreement. Leto has denied the allegations. The K-pop supergroup BTS announced it will not submit its most recent album, Erarang, for Grammy consideration a month after the Recording Academy introduced a new category for Asian pop. The group's 7 members said in a Korean-language statement shared across social media that they have decided not to enter an entry for Grammy consideration this year, hoping music can be heard and loved for what it is rather than being divided into region or language. Neither BTS nor its record label HYBE have commented further on the decision. Working from archives and private collections, engineers have restored notes and uncovered previously unheard details for a new release that displays Ma Rainey's wide-ranging impact. Known as the mother of the blues, Rainey plied a vaudeville-derived style that spoke to a black audience just a generation removed from slavery. Before Thomas A. Dorsey became the father of gospel music, he spent the mid to late 1920s at the piano accompanying her. After touring with Rainey, Dorsey reportedly said there was nowhere else to go but to the Lord. Blues singer Gaytata Degbolola, who has covered and written about Rainey, called her the star of her day. In books, Beth Brower has been self-publishing for a decade, and her series drawn from the cheeky journals of a young woman in Victorian England has become a breakout hit, though the exact identity of Emma M. Lyon remains a mystery to many readers. For those looking to spend a bookish afternoon in Midtown Manhattan, a walking tour guides visitors through the bustling heart of the city, stopping at bookstores, great reading spots and literary-themed snacks. Turning to food, clips of Chef Emeril Lagasse's live shows have suddenly become a hot item on social media, charming younger viewers with his kitchen basics. Emeril said he continues to just keep scratching his head after discovering that clips of his old TV shows Emeril Live and Essence of Emeril are being shared millions of times, especially on X. His cooking variety show Emeril Live aired 5 days a week on the Food Network, paying him a then unprecedented $333,000 a year, and featured guest stars, a house band and a live audience. In other food news, David Hirsch, who helped turn the Sonoma Coast into a world-class wine region, has died at the age of 81. He helped establish a windswept part of California as a source for great American Pinot Noir and Chardonnay grapes and later built his own winery. Hirsch died in Santa Rosa from respiratory failure. His vineyard eventually encompassed 77 acres of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, divided into more than 24 blocks on a property exceeding 1,000 acres, and it has stoked the imaginations of young, gifted producers. In science, the Trump administration is repurposing federal land for AI data centers. In the latest example, the Energy Department will convert a shuttered Cold War-era uranium enrichment facility in Paducah, Kentucky, into a data center campus and gas plants. The site, owned by the federal government, has been undergoing environmental cleanup for years, and the redevelopment is part of a broader effort to accelerate artificial intelligence development while addressing local opposition to such facilities. In wellness, hundreds of young adults gathered in Central Park to relive a childhood fitness test many once loathed. On a warm, cloudless July morning, participants wearing workout clothes fanned out into a long line and faced Jordan Haber, 25, as he hit play on a portable speaker. A monotone voice announced that the FitnessGram Pacer test is a multi-stage aerobic capacity test that progressively gets more difficult as it continues, with the 20-meter Pacer test set to begin in 30 seconds. The Pacer, standing for Progressive Aerobic Cardiovascular Endurance Run, requires participants to run between 2 lines that are 20 meters apart, with laps paced by a standard beep. Meanwhile, Tiny Love Stories featured reader-submitted vignettes of no more than 100 words, including a tale from Bethany O'Brien about chasing the weeky-watchy mermaids, women undulating underwater in bright tails and fixed lipstick, and another from a couple who met in Louisville through music, sharing how their connection grew over violin and guitar. In real estate, curators from the Hudson Valley to Brooklyn are turning empty storefronts into pop-up art exhibitions, showing that vacant commercial spaces can benefit both artists and brokers. A Wallet Hub study published in March ranked 182 of the largest U.S. cities for happiness based on 29 criteria across emotional and physical well-being, income and employment, and community and environment. After crunching the numbers, Fremont, California, on the southeast shore of San Francisco Bay, emerged as one of the happiest cities in 2026. For homebuyers, this week's featured properties priced at $575,000 include a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathhouse in Oregon City, Oregon, within walking distance of the Willamette River and scenic views of Willamette Falls, a Scottish-style pub a few blocks away, and downtown Oregon City with its handful of brew pubs and wood-fired pizza restaurant. Similar homes are listed in St. Louis, Missouri, and Birmingham, Alabama, each offering its own local charm. In fashion and style, Devon Dalton, a 4'6" woman, has been revealed as the stunt double for Matt Damon's biceps in the fight scene of Christopher Nolan's summer blockbuster, The Odyssey. Dalton said she was awakened at 4 a.m. in New Zealand by a buzzing phone after Damon remarked in an interview that she had the greatest arms I have ever seen. Friends have been sending her clips of the interview as it spread online. Bernard Arnault, chairman of LVMH, is attempting to change his image as a heartless luxury titan overnight. Over the past dozen years, Arnault has quietly made efforts to soften his public persona, spending hundreds of millions on the Fondation Louis Vuitton, the museum and the Bois de Boulogne that will become a gift to Paris, and underwriting the Paris Olympics, all in an attempt to offer an alternative to the narrative that paints him as a rapacious capitalist. Finally, a reader reflected on a sensitive conversation overheard in childhood about the paternity of twins. After more than 60 years of keeping the information to himself, he repeated what he had heard to the twins, agreed to DNA testing, and learned that their biological fathers are different. The twins said the revelation does not diminish their feelings for the father who loved and raised them. In obituaries, Clara Esther, a Memphis college student and activist who witnessed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in 1968 when she ran to him to check his pulse, has died at 78 in Mobile, Alabama, from complications following a stroke. Her death leaves Andrew Young as one of the few prominent surviving eyewitnesses to the assassination. Simone Forti, the creator of dance constructions that borrowed from sculpture and performance, has died at 91 in Los Angeles. Her influential works, which employed simple instructions and materials like plywood and rope, are now part of the Museum of Modern Art's collection. Kavinsky, the French DJ and electronic musician best known for the 2010 hit Nightcall featured in the film Drive, has died at 50 in Paris. His real name was Vincent Bollorgi, and his death is under investigation, though authorities have found no suspicious evidence at the scene. In magazine news, the discovery that chronic inflammation is a cause of myriad illnesses could be this century's biggest medical breakthrough, highlighting how a vital bodily response can also become a source of widespread disease. Finally, in opinion, a guest essay reflected on what was really learned from the Fauci hearing, noting that Senate hearings are often theatrical and that Dr. Fauci barely spoke while others projected their emotions onto him, with Senator Rand Paul likening himself to a modern Joe McCarthy. Another essay argued that the outrage over Epstein has obscured the need to actually help exploited girls, suggesting that effective action is more valuable than symbolic condemnation. A piece by Jamel Bowie questioned why society tolerates Elon Musk's racist commentary, citing the white supremacist novel The Turner Diaries and its depiction of atrocities ranging from nuclear attacks on black cities to the subjugation of women and a day of the rope lynching. A guest essay by Sharon Waxman explored whether jettisoning CNN could save the Paramount merger, noting that the deal has been paused for almost a year due to concerns over post-merger control of both CNN and CBS News, a factor that initially gave Paramount leverage with the Trump administration. Carlos Lozada wrote a column hoping his work ages poorly, arguing that the critique of something not aging well is a double condemnation that demands not just factual error but an embarrassing, even ethical, lapse. Tal Feldman's essay examined the hidden cost of China's free AI, explaining that while the United States sells the world's best models, China gives away the second best for free, leading to rapid adoption across Africa, Latin America and Europe, with companies like Siemens and Singapore's national AI program integrating Chinese tools, and even American firms increasingly relying on Chinese-built AI such as the Cursor coding assistant. Lastly, an opinion piece warned that the extreme heat exceeding 100 degrees in Paris and flames near Bordeaux show that France cannot continue on its current path, urging leaders to reckon with how quickly climate risks are changing. That brings us to the end of today's briefing. Thank you for listening to today's headlines. We'll be back tomorrow with more news. Have a great day.